Hey, Teresa, thanks for joining us today. As we're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Oh, happy to do that. Um, we'll keep this with sales. So I've been selling for, believe it or not, I actually had to look this up because I couldn't remember how many years, but it's been about 31 years since I've been in the sales capacity. Clearly, it's something I'm very passionate about to be sticking around for as long as I have. But I do enjoy it. I'm in the Northeast. We relocated from California to Cape Cod.
Wow,
It's been a really fun transition, and it's great to be here with you today.
great. And what are you passionate about sales? How'd you get into it? What do you like about it? What keeps you
Yeah,
involved?
it's funny. A lot of people had said many years back, you should really get in sales. You just have the right personality, you're approachable, you like talking to people. It wasn't on my radar. I think when I was in college, I told all my friends the last thing I will ever do is go into sales. And yet here I am.
30 short years later.
Yeah, exactly. I think I love it because it stretches your skill set as you start to move up in the role. It's very challenging. That keeps it interesting. And, obviously there's a huge reward at the end of the hard work that you put in. So all of those things are probably why I continue to do it.
And you've had a great track record selling some pretty hard stuff too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What attracts you to the hard stuff?
I don't think I know that it's hard till I get in it, but it goes along the lines of um I think if you're passionate about sales, you don't like hearing no, and you really want to make yourself relevant to the folks that you're selling to. And in order to do that, you've got to be challenging. You've got to be selling something that's kind of breakthrough technology. I'm in the software industry, and that's what people ultimately want. They want something that's going to take them and their business to the next level. Um, so, there's nothing short or boring about it. So I just happen to continue to follow that.
And you've sold to a lot of different personas too, haven't you?
I have. I sure have. Yes. Great picking up on that one. Yeah, and I'd
And
have to say, I'm probably at the top of my game here in terms of the level that I'm at selling. I sell to the banking industry. And we really are at the executive level. A lot of people say I work with executives and they might be VPs, but we're at the C-suite. And it's truly fascinating, and um, you see a lot of passion at that level, and it's more of a business discussion, and it's not about the product you're selling. And I truly enjoy that.
well, let's dig into it. What's the
Yeah.
the title of the person that you're most commonly want to talk to?
So typically when we start out, we want to be, these would be managing directors. So an MD, somebody who oversees all the operations, and is focused on process improvement or process optimization. That's the solution that we position in the banks, is to help them really, move faster, scale faster, but more than anything, be innovative. And a lot of banks are really striving for what's called the T+1 trades. And we have a huge success tracker in that particular area.
And it's got to be competitive, right? Super competitive.
You want to know what's funny? So the company I work for, am I allowed to drop the name?
If you'd like.
All right. So the company's called Salonis, and we trailblazed this space for process mining. And what that has done, and so you want to talk about hard, is very hard in the beginning to get people to understand what is that. So you have to be quick and to the point when you're explaining and educating, right? So that it's not overcomplicating the definition. But in that, because so many companies, not just in banking, really it was picked up by manufacturing first, which, they're often sailing into the sunset. Those of us who have been working with banks, it's taken a little bit longer, but we've created a need. And so now there are a lot of competitors in this space. And quite frankly, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That means we've done our job,
Yeah. And,
right?
because I sold that type of thing on the development side.
Okay.
So I kind of sense, and what we always ran into, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat,
Yeah.
and everyone's got a different way and a different value set. How do you keep them focused on your value set?
That's a good question. I hear how other software vendors are positioning themselves. And I certainly don't want to sound the same way they do on this call, but it's really actively listening to what the banks need today. They're all focused on, either risk avoidance, risk management, cost takeout is a big thing, and growing their top line revenues, wallet share. All of that is really important to them. And that's what we play into because we have, again, many other stories that we can share where we've impacted all or maybe one or two of those specific strategies that they have. And really, at the end of the day, it's about us showing them proof before they jump on board and really take on the product across their firm and showing them that all of this waste in your business process is costing you this much money. Wouldn't it be great if you could roll that back into the organization, create capacity by eliminating all this manual intervention? And we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. And that gets their interest immediately because who doesn't want to save in the millions, if not, much higher than that?
And
And that's on an annual basis.
and how do you keep that sale progressing? Because it sounds like you could have a lot of great presentations, demos, proof of value, economic discussions, and I bet the product is well worth its value, which means it's
Mhm.
expensive.
It's got some value. I think you have to have a framework, and you clearly know the sales motions with what you described, but that doesn't mean that everybody follows the framework. Some people probably wing it. I've seen people wing it. I think it's about being prepared, being an active listener, being very relevant to what their needs are. And I think one of the best things that I love is pivoting in a meeting when they've decided, okay, we get all this stuff. We want to know about X, and not being afraid to move to that discussion. I've seen people make the mistake of, well, we'll get there in a minute. Let me continue to tell you how great I am. And I think you've lost credibility at that stage. That's part of, I think, why some of us have higher success than others. And then, of course, I like to put like a sequence of events together and make it a mutual action plan with the prospect and show it to them. Hey, here's this sheet of all the things we have to do from, kicking off the POV to getting you to sign an agreement. Is there anything else in here that I've missed? And of course there will be. And they're like, this is fantastic. I don't even know all the answers. Let me go get those for you. That doesn't make it go faster because there's a lot of stuff that happens once you get to legal review, but it certainly expedites the process if you didn't do something like that. Do you know what I mean?
I gotcha. Yeah.
Yep. So I think when you start to show them that you know their business, that you understand what they need, that what you have can help address those needs, and that you actually have a real plan in place to help them get there, that's a game changer.
Yeah. And what's the hardest part of this sale?
Oof. Um,
I should ask what's the
everything,
easiest part.
everything, right, exactly. It's tough, especially in the conditions of the market. This has been a tough year.
Yeah,
I'll be the first to say, you know, out loud that it's been the toughest of my entire career. So looking
really.
at these 30 years, it's been really tough. Now, having said that, at the same time, I'll say all the days and weeks that you're thinking, what am I doing? Is this the end of it for me? Because I just don't feel like anything's happening. Then I plug into your podcast, I get what I need from it, and it kind of fires me back up. And you're going to go through times where it's going to be tough. But what I love, one of my favorite podcasts is when you talk about get creative. And that's a lot harder than anyone can imagine. When you sit down and think, well, how can I be creative? It's tough.
Yeah.
But when you can figure out another way around where you might be stuck, and, you know, in my case, I figured out a faster way to make my engagement more meaningful and deeper within one of my banks. And they partnered with me to help broker introductions. And as a result of that, we went from kind of a flat discussion to an executive alignment meeting. And I think that's being creative. You have to step back and think, God, I've done everything here, but there's something I'm missing.
Well, because buying your product is not a natural event. It's a
Correct.
it's an unnatural event.
That's right. Yep.
So
Yeah, even if they say, and there's many people today that are focused on process optimization, but it means something different
yeah.
than applying our product. So there's still some level of education for sure. The market has changed the speed at which people are ready to pull the trigger.
Right. Yeah, because they've lived up until now without it.
Yeah,
And you're trying to create a compelling event that would trigger the selection and the execution of a purchase order.
exactly.
And I
Yeah,
got to believe whoever has to approve that, number one on their list is wait. Nothing against the product, nothing against the ROI or anything.
right. That's right. It's understanding early on, where are we on your list of priorities, the
Yeah.
projects that you have in your, you know, view, where do we sit? And then you have to figure out how can we elevate and take that number one spot,
And
which everybody's fighting for.
everyone wants it, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially this time of year.
Yes.
And you bring up active listening a couple times. What does that mean to you?
Listening to you.
Active listening.
Oh, active
Active
listening.
listening.
Sorry. Some people, I've seen them sit back and they're ready to say the next thing. And they've kind of missed the meat on the bones in the conversation. And if you miss that, that could make or break an executive meeting, because you've suddenly not become relevant to them. And it's not just listening to what their needs are, but listen to the words that they're using. Bring that language into your presentations, into your talk tracks, into your engagement with them, because then it's kind of like mirroring. You sound like they do, and you're both actively listening now because there's a partnership in your language.
And
I think that's really important.
do you have a particular way to dig deeper? Because these polished executives, there's probably three levels before you get to any meat on that bone,
Of
right? There's
course.
it's a lot of
Yeah.
fluff and politics, and you're
Yeah,
looking for the meat. You're looking for that problem that's bugging them now.
exactly. Yeah. So I have an example. We have an existing customer. We want to do an early renewal with a expansion on the current agreement. They're not ready nor near ready. And we've had to create urgency. And that is a lot of work too.
Yeah.
So that's when you really have to tune in and you start to see where some of the gaps are and maybe what you know. And we've spent the last, let's call it half a year really helping them um, utilize all the capabilities in the platform and make us not only stickier, but attach ourselves to other key programs that they're focused on. And in that, you can lose sight of what the goals are for them. And you get lost in, have we done this, and this? Well, yes, we did. Okay, now let's put the proposal together. And I think a lot of strategic AEs are honest with themselves. I try to be eyes wide open. And when we put the proposal together, I said, we are missing some stuff. I don't think we know what they want anymore. I don't think we understand their goals because we've been in the weeds to help them use the platform.
Right.
Now we need to go back up and understand what are their business goals and how can we tie ourselves back into it? Because what we tied into, several years ago is not what they care about today. And so you really have to evaluate what you know.
Yeah. And look at it from their perspective, because that's what I heard you
Exactly.
say. Yeah.
Yep. And run it by a couple of people. Maybe if you're gun shy about running it by the economic buyer or the executive sponsor because you don't want them to know what you're ultimately preparing for, all the people around them and the people that are the closest to them, ask them, and they'll tell you exactly what you're looking for. And I think that helps when you're trying to do something sooner than the customer wants to do it.
And what do you think is your strongest sales characteristic?
Mm, I don't know. I mean, you know what people call me, a machine gun.
Really?
They
Why?
call me Machine Gun Teresa. I think because
I was thinking that when I first turned the
yeah,
camera on. Is this
right,
machine
Machine
gun
Gun
ready?
Teresa. Yeah, so my initials are MGT.
Oh,
And so when we are not my real initials, these that they've given me, right?
just a tattoo on your shoulder.
Exactly. That's right. So I think I've been given that because I can get a little bit bullish about what I believe in. And I'm not your typical sales rep that's going to sell you a bunch of crap. I'm not going to sell you something if it's not going to work. If I don't believe it, I'm not going to position it. And a lot of times you're not talking to the right person at that point anyway, right? I get bullish and passionate and I get kind of intense. And I don't know that, I've never really known that that's been serving me, but according to people around me, they think that's what has really been unique about me as I go after it, and not in a jackass kind of way, but more firm, authoritative,
Confident.
and convincing and confident. Yeah,
Yeah.
confident.
Because I got to believe that in these meetings, there's questions that are just itching to be asked. And you may not have asked them 10 years ago before you became the machine gun, right?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
But you probably learned over time you don't want to waste your time.
I don't. And that's a good point because there's also an area where I'm a little bit fearless, and that is, God, we really need to get to the CIO. If we can't get to that CIO or COO, things just aren't going to move.
Get done.
All right, let me make the call. Let me send the emails. Ooh, let me send the LinkedIn note. I I care enough that I don't care, if that makes sense. What
It
have you got to
does.
lose? You don't have
Right.
anything to lose because you don't have anything right now anyway. Um, and if we have bankers, those are the people who, want to engage with us and obviously be a part of us going public. I've met some of them along the way, and a lot of people are a little bit afraid to talk to them.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
And this is something you've developed, I assume, or were you like this
No, I
as a
would say that's
teenager?
developed.
Yeah.
I would say that's developed, right? You, as a young salesperson, the strong ones are always fearless. And yeah, they could pick up the phone and do those same things. But do they know what to say to get
Right.
their
The
attention?
skill.
You can tell the difference in positioning between where we are today and where they are just starting out.
And that ability to ask those tough questions is a critical skill
Mm-hmm.
because, how long did it take you to get into that room with them face to face? Long time, right?
Yes,
And
it
you
could
leave
take
without
six
the answer
months.
that's you want or answer to questions that you need the answer to.
Right. Yes. And
Trying to get it.
leveraging your champion. A lot of champions are also coaches.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of prep with them and want to know any and everything about who we're going to be meeting with at the executive level with our executive team. And you definitely cannot be afraid to ask them questions, no matter how obvious it may seem. If you don't know the answer, you got to ask it. Because if you don't, your leader's going to ask you about it. And if you don't know the answer, they're not going to think you're doing your job.
Yeah. And what kind of gave you this skill? Was there a deal you lost early in your career, or you saw someone else do it, or you just got sick of not asking the tough questions and standing up for yourself? And because let's face it, we work on commission. We're here to sell to people who need our product.
Right. Yeah. I think it was more about look at those reps that are crushing it. And as a younger salesperson, how are they doing that? What are they doing? And I want to get to know them. But I think also, getting close to your own leaders, no matter how wide or how high you want to go in that, um, and others in your organization that are just wildly successful, the way that they present themselves, the way that they position things. I always wanted to learn from those people, and it may be inactive learning. We could all be in a room and they're not necessarily coaching or teaching me, but I'm picking things up as they talk about whatever they're covering. I need to do that. Okay, that's a good one. So it was more about I want to be really successful, and I'm going to listen to the people that already are, that are genuine. I
Right.
think there's a difference between the credible, genuine sales folks versus the ones who will sell you anything and they could care less about you as a person.
Yeah, kind of the empty suit who might have the backbone to ask for the meeting, but doesn't know what to say in the meeting. So they bring an engineer with them, and they
Yeah,
they're totally dependent on the other person to ask any legitimate question, other
right.
than how many and when.
Exactly. That's right.
And do you have like a mental model of these deals that kind of works for you? Some people look at it as projects or puzzles or challenges or battles or
Challenges. I'd say
um,
challenges.
yeah.
I'll at this level we don't have, lots of accounts. So it makes you dig deeper and try and figure out, well, how can I break into, this account? Who do I need to talk to? Who do I need my team to start leveraging relationships, engagements with? And honestly, sometimes when you get that first meeting, it's like, oh my God, this feels like an order because it takes a long
Long
time. You
time to
said
get
it
it.
yourself. It takes a long time. You have to date in today's business economy. You have to date that account for a long time before they're ready to say, all right, we trust you.
Not Tinder.
Mm-mm, definitely not Tinder.
No, it's
No.
not.
Tinder does not write the checks.
Yeah. And
But
oh,
you know what I'm saying? Like they really need to see that A, you're committed, you're invested, and you really want to do business with them.
right, because it's such a big decision. It involves so many people and so many things.
Right.
Keeping that momentum moving is really challenging,
It is.
because I don't think anyone will say, oh, the product doesn't work or we don't need it. Well, you can figure that out long before you get in there, right?
Right.
But once you're in there, there's a lot of reasons why they won't do it that have nothing to
Hmm.
do with you, your product, even budget.
Right. That's right.
It, what do you think is the most important skill you've learned that you don't see in other people, other than that's the backbone and asking the tough questions and
I really think it's active listening. I don't think a lot of people do it. I
listen at
think
all? Yeah.
there, I think many, it's that 80-20 rule. I would say 80% really don't. They aren't present in the conversation entirely, or maybe they don't know how important it is to sit back and be quiet and listen. You probably know that sometimes you ask one question and ooh, they could go on and on and on, and you just get your notepad out and keep taking notes. And there, if you don't get to the line of questions you thought that you needed, it's going to come out in the information that they're sharing. And I just feel like people are ready to ask their next question, ready to talk about them, as opposed to sort of taking a deep breath and being quiet.
Yeah, because we know about us, we don't know about them.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
And it, I'm getting the sense that being able to empathize and understand what they're up against and what they will end up doing is something that's going through your head in that meeting.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you don't even return any kind of information. You want to take it away, digest it, give them enough to keep the excitement. Obviously, you have your next call to action or meeting ready to go, but you take all that back and then prepare what your next positioning conversation is going to be with all of your, asks in mind. Um, it's, observing, listening, collecting. It's kind of like a doctor. When you go into the doctor's
It is
office,
like
they
a
want to know a
doctor.
lot about, oh, your stomach hurts. Okay. So are you feeling this? Are you feeling that? They're trying to diagnose you. And then even if it's, well, we need to do some more imaging, they're not going to tell you what they think it might be. Even if you ask them, well, what do you think it's going to be? That's why we're doing the imaging. It's kind of the same thing. They take it, they collect the information from the images from you, and then they present, here's what's going on. That's how I like to look at it. I've spent a lot of years in with some life-threatening stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
Cool. Hey, Teresa, appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Oh, on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
Teresa Baglietto.
Also known as the machine gun.
Right, exactly.